Go left.
Welcome to Real Body Talk. I am your host, Jennifer Kreatsoulas, coming to you today from MLTV. Today's show explores body image in midlife for women. To shed light on this topic, I've invited Michelle Cavus, a licensed clinical social worker from New York City, to talk with me about the variety of factors that contribute to body image in midlife for women, and to offer some tips and advice on how to practice acceptance toward your body, as well as connect with a sense of vitality and personal power. So thank you, Michelle, so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited you're here. I know this is a topic that you're very passionate about, so I'm really curious to see how our conversation unfolds and what I'm going to learn, as well as our viewers. So to start off the conversation, can you share a little bit about what are some of the things that are happening in midlife in general, right? What are some of the events? What's going on physically? What's going on personally, professionally? Because I know that this is a time of a lot of change and shifting.
Absolutely. So, you know, we live in a very youth-oriented society. And I think what happens is that women, as they age, expect to still be that 20-year-old self. And we're all changing. So even when you're 15 or 10, you're not the same as you are at 25. So the same thing with women at midlife. They're being told they need to look a certain way. They need to show up in the world in a certain body. And so as hormones shift, as they may go through perimenopause, menopause, the bodies are changing because that's just a normal response to aging. And aging is good because that means we're alive, right?
Right.
The alternative is not a great one.
Right.
But it's about accepting that. So what happens is your body's changing. You also may have empty nests. So you may have children that are going to college or have finished college or moving out of the house. And then it's like, who am I? What is my life about? What is meaning and purpose? Whether you've been working or not, there's still a different element. And how you see yourself and where you want to go and how you can still be vital, right? So I think that there's a lot of challenges and changes, and how we deal with that is really essential.
I love what you said. You know, aging is a good thing because it means we're alive. Like, I feel like that needs to be like a T-shirt or something, right? Like, we need to get that message out there. And I wonder if we could get that message out there, how our perceptions of ourselves as we age would change. Right. And you also mentioned the word vitality, which I know we're going to talk about a little later. But that's such a powerful word, right? And it's so easy to lose sight of the importance of vitality and what that means.
Absolutely. I'm also thinking of another word, if you may, wisdom.
Yes.
All the wisdom that we have accumulated over the years. You know, so your 20-year-old self is not the same as your 50-year-old self. And it's really acknowledging all that you've learned and all that you are and all that you can share and want to be in the world now. So I think that we are wise women. Women were always revered because of all that they knew and all they could offer. And I think we need to remember this because in our society, it's the superficiality of youth and models on magazine covers and how you need to be. And that's just a very surface, superficial way of being because we are so much more. We're goddesses.
So do you see women in midlife, this stage of life, being represented in the media anywhere?
So it hasn't been. More recently, some companies, you know, if you go back to the Dove commercials, women of different ages, different sizes are being, you know, shown. I think that also I read recently some of the makeup companies are using some of the older actresses as role models because we are role models, because you need guides. When you're younger, you don't know where you're going and you need women who have matured, who are wiser, to be that guide.
Can you talk about how all the changes that happen in one's life during this time, how does that then get translated into relationship with one's body, right? Because there's a correlation there. How does that play out? I mean, you mentioned the actual physical changes, so there's that piece and the angst that comes with that, but these emotional pieces, children leaving the home, the question of who am I, maybe feeling lost to purpose, maybe there's changes in other relationships happening.
Sure.
Maybe there's loss, you're seeing people in your life pass away. How does all of that get mapped onto how we relate to our bodies?
Well, I think, the word I'll use is control. And so we want to control things that maybe we can't. And really the bottom line is, and it's really letting go, because we cannot control life events. Things happen. And so many times we try to control it with how we look. And that's whether we're over-exercising to keep that body. That's a way of maintaining control. With some people, it might be with their food and how they're restricting their food to look a particular way, right? All in the desire to show the world, I'm okay, the outside self.
Yeah.
But we're so much more than the outside self. It really comes from within, right? And so it's about looking within. Maybe this is a time of looking more within, that we're told we need to be doers, do. Take care of everybody, do this, do that. But what about our own self? We need to show up for ourselves as well, self-care. And I always say, if I don't show up for me, how am I going to show up for you, right? And there's, in meditation and Buddhist philosophy, yoga philosophy, the loving kindness meditation. And what it says is, it starts with ourselves. May I be happy, may I be healthy. Because if we're not strong, if we're not okay, then how do we show up for other people? And we've been taught, put ourselves last. And women at midlife now, and women all ages really, I would say that you need to start right off. And I work with many young women who are just beginning, college age and up. And it's, can I show up for myself? And maybe we haven't learned that because we've been focused on everyone else. But now is the time. And you have the opportunity, because you don't have to focus on the kids. And you don't have to take care of everyone else. Maybe it's time now that you start showing up for yourself, because you are so much more than your outside self.
So a lot of permission giving to oneself, right? Which is not a value that we're typically taught. In your practice as a therapist, working with people perhaps who have somehow connected happiness with the exterior, right? Because that is a value that we're taught, right? How do you help them shift from this external to the internal that you're talking about here today, right? Because that belief system can be so strong, right? That I'm only happy if this, and it's related to how I look, and that's not a judgment, right, or a criticism of those people. I mean, I certainly have gone through times in my life where I've bumped up against that, so I get it. However, staying there, right, is kind of a dead end, and so how do we help people shift from that? So I think the shift really is, again, to go within. And to look at what else is important in your life. Maybe you haven't, because you haven't had the time to really go within. It's more of an internal practice. So what brings you joy? Again, the aliveness, the vitality. What is your passion? And maybe you haven't had time to even think about what that might be. So say you've been a working mom, or not, and you've just been consumed with everything else. Now is the opportunity to think about, maybe when you were younger, you liked writing or dancing or whatever that might be.
what about reconnecting to that? Things that you've let go because you haven't had the time. So again, what brings you joy? Because when we focus on the outside self, it really is because we're not connecting internally. We talk about spiritual hungers, and that doesn't mean religious in any way. It's more about who we are in a really deep way, right? And so how do we reconnect to that? And then also we've been taught, oh, we need to look a certain way. So we might have a lot of negative self-talk, and it might be, oh, wow, you've put on some weight, or you're not looking the way you used to, or you're not good enough, or you're comparing yourself. So really, it's changing the conversation. And it really is to talk to yourself in a kinder way, with compassion. Being more compassionate is the way we make changes from the inside out, and really changing the conversation, and not buying into society's standards of how you should be or need to be, but understanding that you're so much more, and you can do that for yourself. And take the focus off of that outside part, not saying we should not take care of ourselves, right? And we certainly can feed ourselves and our soul, right? In so many ways, whether it's with good foods that we enjoy, you know, whether it is physical activity, but not over-exercise, maybe yoga. You and I both love yoga. I started doing yoga 15 years ago, and it has been life-changing. And it's just such a beautiful practice because that gives you the opportunity to just sit and be with yourself, connect to your breath, the concepts of non-judgment, right? And really acceptance and all those kind of things, not comparing yourself to anyone else. Those are all concepts that you can embody. And I think that that is certainly one possibility that people have really connected to and really love and find joy in. Maybe it's taking yourself away. I've gone on yoga retreats, so maybe it's giving yourself that gift of taking that time for yourself and being in that type of environment where it's okay to just be. Because we're always doing, especially women, right? We're not human doings, we're human beings. And no one remembers, let's just be. You know, maybe meditating, connecting to your breath, like I said, writing, painting, art. Maybe you've been a painter and you just haven't done that. So whatever it is that brings you more peace and more joy, you're going to see it's going to shift how you're feeling about your outside self, because you're connecting in so many more deep ways to yourself than just that surface level or how you think you need to show up or present to the world. You know, I think to women at midlife, there's almost this like, you know what, maybe it doesn't matter anymore. One of my favorite authors and I guess spiritual leaders, Wayne Dyer. I love this quote: what anyone else thinks of you is none of your business. Right?
That's right.
Right? So if you go with that, it's like, right, you know, everybody's not going to approve of you or like you. Louise Hay is another one. Says, I love and approve of myself. Say that in the mirror. Say it 500 times until you really are internalizing it. So that's the change of the conversation, right?
Yes, yes. The changing the interior.
That's right.
Right? And I love the idea of bringing back things from the past that used to bring you joy. And I also wonder if this is a time to like set your sights on like, what is it that you've been wanting to do or try? And now's a new chapter and a time to begin
That's right.
integrating some new things.
Right, because as we let go of something, we make room for something else to come in, right? Like we say, as one door closes, another door opens. And it's being open to new possibilities. And how exciting can that be, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I want to circle back just briefly to perimenopause, menopause. I think it's important to just be with that for a moment. Because from that shift, there's, you know, that biological shift. I know I'll share, you know, I'm kind of ramping up right into it now. And there is this emotional sense of loss, right? That comes with, you know, losing your ability to bear children. Now look, I have no interest in bearing any more children at all. Trust me. I have 2, I'm content.
Right, right.
It's not about that. But I think just biologically, like primally, like that shift in connection with that part of your body, and now your purpose is changing. I'm just curious if you can speak on that. I mean, I think it can happen on a very subconscious level.
Sure.
But there is something about the purpose of reproduction, even if that's not something that you're like walking around like, I'm embracing my purpose of reproduction.
Right.
But there is a biological shift happening.
Well, I think of the symbolism. So think about this. When you get your period, say you're 12 years old, pull out that number. Now you're told you're a woman. And so not having a period, does that mean you're no longer a woman? But of course you are. There is freedom with that, not having to deal with that monthly.
Of course.
Right. And so, but it is very subconscious, like you said, that you're not even aware on an unconscious level of what that feeling is in maybe losing your period, no longer being able to bear children, whether you've ever had children or not. It's more about that sense of loss.
And it's also about, it's that sense of loss and am I still of value?
Right, right. And that's the whole useful thing. So as you go into menopause, you know, your elasticity, different things go on, your body's changing. So that also is, oh my God, I'm not youthful anymore. Am I still vital?
Right.
Am I still a sexual being? You know, some women find freedom in that and not having to deal with the period and really reconnecting to their sexuality. It's like, oh, this is great. This is fun.
Yeah.
So, you know, you talk about yourself. So I could speak about myself too, that as I went into menopause, my body changed. And I was never one that was overly obsessed with my body. And not saying I didn't want to do self-care or, you know, exercise or, you know, dress my body, because I certainly did. I think that's important. That's part of the self-care. But I've had to also practice body acceptance because things do change. And being well-versed with all this and working with so many women of all ages that are so focused and obsessed about how their bodies look, I'm aware that I don't want to be in that place and that I love to eat.
Bravo!
And and I want to enjoy. That's the vitality of life, like really enjoying. And that to me is really sexy, because I think that when you have passion and that's coming through, it doesn't matter what size it is, it's about that. So sometimes I have to practice body acceptance and be like, wow, these pants don't fit. That sucks. But but okay, so I'm going to find some other pants that do fit, are comfortable, are going to look nice, and I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to take care of myself in the best way possible, and to accept that this is where I am. This is the stage of life. And I become the elder. Like, I'm no longer that younger woman. And it's like, wow, how did I get this old, right? But it's like, okay, well, like again, we go circle back. Well, it's great I'm this old. I've lost friends at younger age. And like, I'm going to be grateful that I can show up. I can do my yoga. Like when I go in, I'm like, oh, wow, this is awesome. And really be grateful that I can still have the passion and excitement for things. And so, you know, this is where it is. And so I encourage women to embrace that. Maybe that's a word too, to embrace yourself where you are, because you can only be where you are. And that's the concept of also staying present. Suffering occurs when we are in the past or we are stressing about the future.
That's right.
So we connect to our breath, and I do a lot of work with that, and as do you, right? And just be in your body, be where you are, accept where you are, because there really is no other choice. And if you're constantly pushing against the grain to be somewhere else, then you're always in this state of unhappiness, rather than just enjoying every moment of the life that you do have now, right? Being in the moment.
Yeah, it's such a great message. You mentioned earlier about, people might make comments. Oh, look like you put on some weight, blah, blah, blah. The holidays are coming. We're spending a lot of time with our families over the holidays. We're with the people that push our buttons probably the most.
Absolutely.
It might be cultural to comment on people's bodies, or it just might be a dynamic within the family. As a therapist, can you offer some advice on how to show up in the holidays, and whether from a self-talk standpoint, how to respond to comments like that? I think it's important.
Yeah, I agree. And no matter how old you get and you have parents or you have relatives, somebody's going to say something, and because they're not really thinking about their words, or that, again, it's not their business.
Right.
And I think the message really is to not engage in it. Or if say it once, maybe ignore it. They say it again, say, hey, listen, really, I would rather not discuss this. This really is not your concern.
Right.
Like, just to be direct about it, and to say this is not helpful, right? Yeah. Because people think that they're helping you or they should be in your business, and that goes with anyone at any age. I work with a lot of younger women, especially who are going home for holidays, and there's always that conversation about bodies, or, oh, you lost some weight. Well, they may be having an eating disorder, and that's not a good thing because they've been restricting their food, or maybe they're binging and purging, and people are not aware. And so I think it's really to be like, I am not going to engage in this, and to set boundaries, healthy boundaries. And I think that, yes, it can be triggering, it might make you feel bad, but if you continually work on yourself, that's taking your breath and like, okay, they're going to have their opinion. That might be true, I put on some weight, but that's not their concern. Right. And that's not something that you say to someone, and you need to be okay with yourself. So if we work on our own self, then we can show up with people who think they're well-meaning but have no boundaries, and kind of be like, okay, that's their stuff. I'm not going to get pulled into it. Whatever that stuff is, whether it's weight or a conversation about, are you dating? I've had young women like, oh, yeah, so you're dating anyone? Like, when are you getting married? When are you having a baby? It's like, really? Is this appropriate? This is not your business. Right. So I really think it's setting boundaries with anything, because your body is your body. It's no one else's business.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I kind of feel like that's a great line to end on.
Oh, yeah?
Right?
You like
your
that?
body is your body, and it's nobody else's business.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And just to kind of recap, your wonderful points about passions, connecting with your passions, like doing things that remind you of your vitality, right? And your personal power, that you have a place in this world, that you are of value.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's at any age.
Right.
Right? And I also, one more thing I want to squeeze in here.
Sure.
We had this conversation offset the other day, the difference between saying middle age and midlife, right? Right. They have such different vibes to them.
Absolutely.
So if say someone's caught up in like, I'm middle age, and like that has a connotation that's kind of bringing them down, right? What would it feel like to shift to like, oh, I'm midlife, like I'm wise, and I'm free now to go and explore the world and come into myself more fully. It's just a different context.
It's always about how you see things, and how the words sometimes are so powerful, and just changing one word. It's not even that different. Midlife, middle age, you're having the same mid. Right. Right? But life is, again, going back to vitality, rather than the old connotation of what middle age means. You're old. Yeah. And especially now, people are living longer, and they're starting new things at different age. In the 60s, people are starting things. Louise Hay, who wrote You Can Heal Your Life, one of my favorite, 60. She started Hay House, and she died, I think, in '92, a couple of years ago, and she was vital till then. And yes, she's a huge example of it, but there are many women who are doing businesses, who are starting new chapters in their life. I have a dear friend who's 60, just wrote a trilogy of books and just moved from one country to another and is just reinventing and recreating. So, you know, how do we create and recreate? Because that is about life-giving. We keep recreating ourselves. So really looking at, and also to say, it's really hard sometimes to do this on your own. So I can't say enough about getting support, whether it is with friends. Being real and authentic is really important. We think we need to put on this veil of who we are and present that to the world. That's also the outside self. And you and I, as we talk here, and I must say, we really are genuine, authentic. We're off the set this way and on the set. But it's being real. Who is your authentic self? Not the self that you think you have to show the world, but really being authentic and genuine, because people do relate to that, and it is contagious, and that's how you connect. And I think it's also about, you know, just being in your own power. That's another thing, that we don't connect to who we are, that we're much more powerful. Marianne Williamson said, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. It is that we are powerful beyond measure. And that can be really, whoa, overwhelming, right?
Right.
But connecting to that place. And then lastly, I would say is sometimes you do need professional guidance. And that's something that I am passionate about and love to do, empowering women to find their voice, to speak their truth and stand in their power. And I encourage you and urge you to do that, wherever that might be. You know, I'm not here in Philly. I know this is a Philly station. I'm in New York City. But find that person or a group or whoever it might be. You know, there's, you know, different groups, support groups, women's groups, goddess groups, whatever it might be.
Right.
Find that space, that place where you can be yourself and are getting supported and uplifted by other women, by professional therapists, to really help you plod through this, because sometimes it's really hard to do these things on our own, and it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
I have asked for help. We all ask for help. If I didn't get the support I needed or still may need at times, then I can't show up for you. And I think I said that to you before too. If we don't show up for ourselves, we can't show up for anyone else. So show up.
Yeah, I love it. Show up and find your tribe.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right. Well, thank you, Michelle. This
Absolutely.
has been a fantastic, enlightening conversation.
Yes, I loved sharing it with you. Thank you.
If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that? Okay,
So I am definitely online, Michelle Kabas, Kabas, LCSW. My website is michellekabaslcsw.com. And I'm on a variety of different sites, Psychology Today, Therapy Tribe is my website, Zen Care, but look me up, and I love to connect. I sometimes do some Skype sessions, so if you're in a different state, I'd be happy to also do that. And I've run some workshops, and so I would love to connect if that's something that you're wanting or needing. And thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed every moment.
We will do it again, I have a feeling.
So much fun. Thank you, thank you, Jennifer.
Good. And if you want to learn more about me, you can check out my website, Yoga for Eating Disorders. That's the number 4. And I thank you so much for joining me here on MLTV today for Real Body Talk. I will see you again soon.